Welcome to the Tax Talk. My name is Aina Sale, and I'll be taking you through the ropes for the next half an hour or so. Our business on the Tax Talk is to help you thoroughly understand tax administration within Lagos State. Of course, with the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, LIRS, being the vanguard collecting agency in the state and a model for other states of the Federation. Don't go anywhere as we kick off the show with business news.
This is Business News. The Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, has ushered in a new era of leadership with Mr. Innocent Ohagwa formally assuming office as its 17th president. His presidency commences at a pivotal moment for Nigeria's taxation system, which is currently undergoing significant overhaul and comprehensive reforms. Mr. Ohagwa, an astute professional with a long-standing and impeccable track record in the field, officially succeeds Mr. Samuel Agbeluyi. The transition in leadership at CITN coincides with a critical juncture in Nigeria's economic landscape. The nation's tax ecosystem is the subject of extensive reforms aimed at enhancing efficiency, broadening the tax base, and increasing government revenue. These reforms encompass adjustments to company income tax rates, reviews of personal income tax bands and rates, modifications to value-added tax exemptions, and an increase in VAT rates for non-essential commodities, and the proposed introduction of a new developmental levy alongside a concerted push for greater tax registration and compliance. As a regulatory body for tax practice in Nigeria, the CITN is poised to play a crucial watchdog role under Mr. Ohagwa's stewardship. And that's it on Business News.
Welcome back from the business news. We are set to tackle an interesting topic on today's edition of the show. Perchance, this is the first time you are tuning into the Tax Talk. Let me quickly brief you on how we do things. Today's edition is a corporate talk edition. What that means is that we host a guest in the studio with the aim of getting clarity on issues related to a particular topic as it concerns tax administration within Lagos State. Our focus today, changes to withholding tax regulations and implications for taxpayers. Joining us in the studio to expedite this discussion is Mr. Jimi Aina, Director, New Growth Areas, Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. Mr. Jimi Aina, it's always a pleasure to have you right here with us on the Tax Talk.
Thank you very much, Oyi. I'm very happy to be here again.
Could you provide an overview of the key changes introduced in the deduction of tax at source regulations 2024?
Okay, the Withholding Tax Regulations 2024 introduced several changes and modifications to the types of incomes that are subject to withholding taxes, their rates, and also exemption thresholds. The regulations also introduced some new incomes that are now subject to withholding taxes and the treatment of trade invoices as instruments useful for the claim of withholding taxes. Basically, some vibrant sectors like the lottery and gaming sector will now have withholding taxes introduced.
And what objectives does the government aim to achieve with these reforms?
Well, the primary objective of these reforms of withholding taxes as a whole is to broaden the tax base and then tighten collection measures, which can now bring in more revenue for government agencies or government services, I'll say. Now, withholding taxes serve as an enumeration tool for active businesses, active income earners who may be invisible typically. So just these are prepayments from their taxes or from their income.
Okay, and the regulations became effective on July 1, 2024, with certain provisions starting on January 1st, 2025. How has the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service managed the phased implementation?
You know, the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service has always taken a collaborative position to any new reform. So the first things first, we used the 6 months. You know, some came into play on July 1st and some on July 1st, 2024, and some on January 1st, 2025. So the LRS started putting our house in order, in quotes. We started to work on some of our internal processes to ensure that our staff first are aware of these reforms and then the implementation methods. Of course, we started engaging our stakeholders, the corporate entities, the CFOs. All those kind of conversations are crucial to implementations of new reforms. One of the most important parts of our business is taxpayer education and enlightenment. In fact, we have a whole unit dedicated to this function. So our TEAT teams, which we call our Taxpayer Enlightenment and Education Team, has been deployed to several units or several locations all over Lagos to educate and enlighten taxpayers on these new reforms. Also, one of these, like these tax talks and workshops, regularly engaging our taxpayers. And we have a robust customer service system where we have dedicated account officers whose responsibility it is to, they are assigned to taxpayers, and they assist them to review some of these reforms, implement some of these reforms, and where there are issues, like there's a back and forth. So we are very, very open with those channels. Of course, our social media channels are very vibrant, and of course, we maintain our 0700 IRS call center, always available 24 hours to take your requests.
So what has been the feedback so far since the implementation of this?
That is a very good question. Now, as with all reforms, there are different levels of compliance. There are some taxpayers who are always willing to comply. So they have come in, they have been enlightened, they've been engaged, and they're applying the right rates. There are some who we have to go to because they have misapplied the rates. There's willingness to comply, but there's misinformation on their part. So we're always, again, very willing and very quick to implement these reforms or engage them as they implement these reforms. However, we will always find those recalcitrant taxpayers who will use this as an excuse to shy away from their responsibilities, and they will claim ignorance. So we, of course, look at what the data says, and it gives us the feedback to know where to have these conversations. And the worst case scenario, which we hate to do, is, of course, apply the punitive parts of the law.
Small companies with a valid tax identification number are exempt from withholding tax under the new regulations. How does this exemption benefit small businesses in Lagos?
Yes, that's one of the most exciting parts of these reforms for me, because this administration has always been big on the same statement. They're not looking to tax your prosperity. That's not what we're trying to look for here. We're looking to tax your income. So it's not if there's no income, there's nothing to tax. That's the thought process behind the administration. And these reforms are simply extending that. So the fiscal arm of the government has looked at the vibrant size of the economy, the areas that require stimulation, and looked at, okay, let's keep this money in the arms or in the hands of these small businesses. So if your income is below a certain threshold, you are not liable to withholding taxes, as long as you are a registered taxpayer. That's a crucial point here. You must be a registered taxpayer to benefit from this threshold gaps.
I see. The withholding tax rate for payments to Nigerian companies for professional management, technical and consultancy services has been reduced from 10% to 5%. What impact do you anticipate this will have on service providers?
It's just to increase the revenue available to these providers to carry out their businesses. The government has recognized that these areas require some sort of stimulation. So rather than taxing more of their income, we're reducing those prepayments and allowing them to hold more of the cash available to them and using it in operating their daily, carrying out their daily operations.
Mr. Jimi, I know I've been engrossed throughout the course of this conversation so far, and I would have loved to go on to ask you further questions, But at this point, we need to go on a quick break, and of course, we'll be right back. Mr. Jimi Aina, Director, New Growth Areas, will still be with us when we get back from this quick break, and I'm sure you will too.
Have you had a hard time with taxes and understanding tax administration in Lagos State and the complex nature of Nigerian tax law? Do you know what agency or tier of government collects the various types of taxes? Have you ever found yourself asking any of these questions? Join us for your favorite program, The Tax Talk, your infotainment program.
Welcome back. The LRS's Director, New Growth Areas, Mr. Jimi Aina, is still here with us on Corporate Talk, and we are analyzing the changes to withholding tax regulations and implications for taxpayers. Mr. Aina, let's go back to our questions. I understand some business expenses like telephone charges, internet data, and airline tickets are now exempt from items chargeable to withholding tax. How has the LRS adjusted its operational systems to accommodate these changes?
Thank you very much for that question. So as you know about the LRS, our systems are automated. So we have the e-tax system, which allows for e-submission of all withholding tax deductions, the schedules of all these withholding tax deductions. So we're currently in the process of upgrading that to even allow you to submit all these processes, taking into consideration all the exemptions online, where you can make the payments, include the pay IDs, and automatically credit the withholding tax credit notes to the necessary, beneficiaries. So our systems are currently being upgraded. We're about to launch the e-tax phase 2 with the withholding tax schedules, withholding tax model being a major contributor of that part. So our IT unit is consistently working on this. So right now there's an e-submission model, but we're trying to work on it to make it more sophisticated for ease of compliance, ease of administration, and ease of everything. So you can generally just generate your credit notes from your own office without having to wait for the LIRS to assist you with that.
The e-submission model, how has that been so far?
Well, the compliance is very impressive, especially with the corporate bodies. We see a large level of compliance because it's more or less like a prepayment on behalf of beneficiaries. So the beneficiaries themselves require the evidence of these payments for them to net it off their final taxes. So that has been a big motivator. So some taxpayers do not know of this. They just recognize that their withholding taxes have been deducted and they don't bother with the credit notes. So we continue to ensure that the corporate responsibilities, corporate organizations who are responsible for this, make sure that the submissions come into play every month.
What challenges has LRS encountered in the process of implementing of these reforms, and how have they been addressed?
The challenges always come around the same issues. We have taxpayers who struggle to come to terms with new reforms. Some of them might be capacity related, some of them might just be an unwillingness, and some of them, it's just who they are. So we continue with these conversations. We're getting a lot of positive feedback. I must give that kudos to the taxpayers. The feedback is very impressive. People are applying the right rates, and where there are issues, people are coming up to us and asking questions. And again, what makes this easier is we've had what I call a 6-month timeline for the implementation of some of these withholding tax changes or these reforms. So our taxpayers are not unaware. They are very aware, and they're taking into cognizance these changes. And of course, the best part, like I highlighted, is our customer service model. Each company is allocated an account officer, and there's a recognition of responsibility on the part of either of each party. So most companies know their account officers, and they engage them back and forth. And when there are any issues, we're always willing to assist. So again, I'm not going to pretend and say that there are some taxpayers who are finding it difficult to comply. But of course, they know that our door is always open. And unfortunately, where we do find that taxpayers don't comply with the right rates, the law permits us to apply some of these rates retroactively. So again, one of the best parts of this regulation, or these regulations, are that they reward compliance. So for taxpayers who are registered within the system, the tax rates stay at a certain level. But for those who are not registered at all, the withholding tax rates are doubled. So that, of course, triggers compliance. So if you know that the withholding taxes the double withholding taxes will be deducted from your fees, the wise thing to do is just to register with the tax authority. And that's what we are seeing a lot of.
Okay, Mr. Aina, how is LRS ensuring that taxpayers comply with the new regulations, especially concerning the accurate application of reduced rates and exemptions?
So the major action that we take is that we monitor the data. So we are very big on data collection, and the data always tells a story. So we look at the numbers, we look at the beneficiaries, we look at the data, and then of course our systems pull up and flag where there are gray areas, where there are question marks in quotes. So this of course pushes us in the direction of the taxpayers that we need to engage and those that we need to give recommendations. And of course, the consistent request for credit notes, which is like an evidence of payment on behalf of paid on behalf of taxpayers, is a consistent reminder of what needs to be done. So again, we continue with our engagement, we continue with our enlightenment, and we don't shy away from it because that is the only way to drive the compliance that we're looking for.
And of course, consistency is key. Are there additional measures or support systems in place to assist taxpayers during this transition period?
Oh, yes. I mentioned some, but our social media channels are very active. Our customer service line is very active. Our account officers are very active. Every single member of staff doubles as an account officer for when necessary to enlighten taxpayers and engage. So the good thing is we also have a very good rapport with the various tax consultants that have been employed by our stakeholders. Mm-hmm. So we're consistently engaging them as well. And of course, we never stop with the workshops. We're consistently engaging the NECAs of this world, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, the CITN, the ICANN. So whenever they call us for any event, we take this opportunity to enlighten and engage. And of course, we are seeing beautiful results from these interactions. In fact, I dare say that the rate of compliance is beyond what we as an agency expected in our projections.
Can you leave us with your final thoughts?
Okay, thank you very much for having me again. Now, for me, it's crucial that corporate taxpayers and their beneficiaries recognize the importance of registration for their tax obligations and not only make these withholding tax payments, but also accompany them with schedules for these beneficiaries. Because every taxpayer deserves to get their credit notes for every payment made on their behalf. Also, I proudly declare everywhere that I go that my taxes are building the Lagos of our dreams. And I'm confident that we all want to say the same thing. Thank you.
Wow, Mr. Jimi, I know it's always a pleasure having you on the Tax Talk. And I must say that you have really taken us through the ropes on this topic about withholding tax. And I'm sure our audience at home have learned a thing or two. Well, from all of us at the Tax Talk, we want to say we wish you all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you very much.
That's it on the Corporate Talk segment. Remember to benefit from the exemptions from the minimum threshold as it relates to the Withholding Tax 2024. You must be a registered taxpayer. Also, Lagos, remember, it is double the withholding tax rate for non-registered taxpayers. It's not yet a cutting call on the show as we have other segments waiting on the back burner. Please stay with us. The Tax Talk continues shortly. The education on what your taxes are being used for is a continuous one, as there is always some project within the state needing attention. Sometimes it's a new project, other times it's old projects or infrastructure being updated. Tax Did It is next on the Tax Talk.
train is taking off from Oyinbo Station, and the next stop will be Yaba. After Yaba, it will stop at Mushi. After Mushi, it will stop at Oshodi. After Oshodi, straight to Agege, Ikeja. After Ikeja is Agege. After Agege is Iju. And finally, we take off all the way to Agbado in Ogun State. We should be on time, we should be on schedule, and it's an honor to lead the train journey here this evening. So gentlemen, all of my passengers, mind the gap between the platform and the station. Make sure you have your blue cowrie card. That is the only means.
Every week, the Tax Talk seeks to up your knowledge on what you are familiar with as regards tax administration in the great state of Lagos. Today has been no exemption, and I hope you had your questions answered. Don't forget to engage us across our social media platforms as well. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. That's all on today's edition of the Tax Talk. My name is Oyinlola Saleh, and I hope to see you next week. Bye for now.